Okay everyone, so for this assignment what we are going to be doing is we are going to be using 1 square inch of clay. And when we use this 1 square inch of clay, we're going to be measuring it off of our chunk of clay, and we are going to be using only that clay for anything that we make. So if you guys are making slip to connect things together, you're going to make that slip with that square inch of clay. You're bound to be using just that 1 square inch of clay. You don't have to use it all. You can use just a portion of it if you would like. So you're not tied to using exactly 1 square inch of clay, but you cannot use any more than that, but you can use less. The other thing about this assignment is there's so many different possibilities. Make sure that you take a look at that art strategies document that's in the module to make sure that you understand a bunch of different art strategies so you can find a place that you want to go and where you want to create from. So when we're doing this, you're going to need a ruler. That's basically all you're going to need is a ruler, and I've got a knife tool as well. I made this knife tool, and I'll show you guys how I'm going to use it. I just used a regular plastic knife from one of the fast food restaurants, and I got rid of all of the teeth down below here by sanding, and I also got rid of the ridge here that was on the top. You can see the portion of the ridge right here as well, but I got rid of that ridge so that way it's got a nice thin, essentially, knife edge, kind of like our fettling knives or like a paring knife of some sort. You can also use a paring knife, you can use a kitchen knife, but you just want it to be pretty thin so that way you can cut it off. The other thing that you can do is you can use something like a piece of floss or a piece of string as your wire tool. I did not go over that in the video on making tools, but that's another thing that we can make, essentially, is we can make a wire tool so we can cut our clay off the block rather than just kind of grabbing at it. We don't necessarily want to do that. If we grab at it, then we're probably going to be adding air into the mix, and we'll have to wedge then. Big thing on this is that you need to spend 1 hour, at least 1 hour. If you spend less than an hour, you're not following the guidelines. So I want you guys to slow yourselves down and really think about things as you're going to make this object. Doesn't have to be a single object, it can be multiples, right? It can be modular, it could be something that could be put together in multiple different compositions and changed around if you want to, or it can be one object if that's what you're looking for. But like I said, stick to one of the art strategies outlined in that PDF file that's in the module, and let's have some fun with it. I'm going to show you guys really quickly how to cut off that square inch and make sure you measure that square inch, because we want to make sure that it's exactly 1 square inch or as close to exactly 1 square inch as possible. Sound good? All right. Here we've got our bag of clay. I'm going to use this terracotta just because I want to have a little bit of color in what it is that I'm doing. And so I'm just going to kind of expose that clay and get myself ready. Number of different things you can use, gang. You guys can use a measuring tape if you want to get to that 1 inch, right? Doesn't really matter. Or you can use something like a ruler. I've got this nice kind of clearish ruler that you can probably barely see in the video, but I've got this ruler here so that way we can measure out that 1 cubic inch, all right? So what we're going to be doing is kind of coming here to the edge of this, and maybe what we have to do is kind of use something or use our hands just to kind of manipulate that clay. This Amico clay comes pretty soft, so don't worry about that. It'll kind of dry out a little bit over time as we're using it through the rest of the semester, but I just kind of want to get it kind of a little bit more squared off on one of these corners, right? And then I've got that knife that we were talking about that I'm going to be using to cut this little square inch of clay off. So what I can do is I can just use my needle tool that I made the other day, or I can use this like kind of pointy tool that I made the other day as well. And I'm going to mark this stuff off, mark off about a square inch. So I'm going to come here and look at where the 1 inch mark is. and kind of give myself a little bit of a mark here. One nice thing that I like about this ruler that I have is it's got multiple spots here. So I can go in and inch this direction too to give me what the size of this thing is gonna be, right? So there's my 1 inch mark and 1 inch here. So I can kind of cut down, straight down. And then I'm gonna come over to the other side here. Make sure that I've got that at about 1 inch as well, right? And then I'm gonna cut down here as well. It's okay to overlap some of this stuff. Cut down on it, bam. And then I'm gonna get this ruler again, kind of come to this side and make sure I've got 1 inch going this direction, and then cutting inwards this direction. And because this clay is still pretty sticky, pretty soft, it might stick to itself, but we want to kind of wiggle it free. And then we want to kind of square things off as well to try and make sure we've got that square inch, right? Probably should have started out with a little bit. I think we're going to end up pretty good with it. Notice too that I'm working on a piece of newspaper. You either want to work on some newspaper or work on some plastic, so that way you're not getting it on anything in the house. But I can take this and kind of pound it down, kind of hit it down on the table surface to try and get this thing to turn into that square inch, because we want to make sure we've got it 1 inch on every side. All right, so we have the right amount of clay to start out with. Take a little bit of time to get this thing ready, right? Now, a lot of different things can happen to this square inch of clay by following those art strategies. But one thing, or a couple things I want you guys to realize too, is that there is such a thing as reductive processes and additive processes. And so what that basically means is that this, right, this is 1 square inch of clay. I can take this 1 square inch of clay and I can let it sit out for a little bit of time, and I can let it harden up, and then I can start reducing. I can start removing clay from the surface. And if I'm removing clay from the surface, that's a reductive process for sculpture. And then if I cut some of it off and then I form it into another shape and then I put it back onto the object, then I'm using an additive process, okay? So right now, I'm just gonna double check, make sure, take a look at this. This is about 1 inch right there, inch in that direction, maybe a little bit more than 1 inch in that direction, but that's okay, right? As close as we can get to 1 exact square inch is good to go. And then we can do whatever we want with this. We can form it into something long. We can form it into something wide. We can make it flatter. We can do anything that we really want to do with this chunk of clay, right? So I'm not going to be showing you guys and giving you guys a demo on what it is that I'm going to make, but I will end up making something with this 1 square inch. I'm just not sure exactly what I'm going to do quite yet, but I will also post my result, okay? So that's our square inch of clay. That's where we're going to begin, and then we're going to have a good time with it. Sound good? When you're done making that 1 square inch of clay, you want to make sure that you close up this bag. Nice thing about these Amico bags is that you can actually take them and kind of fold this stuff around itself. There's not like a twist tie or anything that's associated with these, but you can do a number like this where you kind of tuck it and it ends up holding the moisture in there really, really well. And then tuck it back around here, and then your chunk of clay is ready to go, all right? So remember, with any cleanup, tools, they don't have to be cleaned up at all, but what you can do, my hands, they've got some clay on them, right? One thing you want to make sure you don't do is breathe in a bunch of clay dust, right? So, don't go and like smack your hands around like this, that, and the other when you're doing this. What you would want to do is just, if you have a little bit of clay like this, go to your sink. If you're concerned about getting any sort of clay particles in your sink, the small stuff, like the stuff that's on my hands, not that big of a deal. It's not going to cause any issues. Just make sure you don't get any chunks or anything like that down your drains. Or if you're really concerned about it, you can wash your hands off outside in your hose if you have one. So excellent. Thanks, guys.